My name's Matt. I'm 38 years old. I met my wife, Caroline, when I was 25. It wasn't anything dramatic or cinematic. We met at a friend's engagement party in a crowded backyard with paper lanterns and too many cheap drinks. She was wearing this navy blue sundress, barefoot on the grass, talking about how she'd just gotten into podcasting before podcasting was even a thing. We got to talking about books, then music, then somehow ended up sitting on a garden bench for 3 hours until everyone else was packing up. That was the first time I saw her smile in that half-tilted way that made you feel like you were in on a private joke. We started dating a few weeks later, and I fell hard, quietly, but completely. Caroline has this energy about her. She's sharp and witty, with a way of turning the mundane into something memorable. I'm a little more reserved, the type who's happier behind the scenes than in the spotlight. But with her, I felt seen. Not just noticed, but understood. 3 years in, I proposed. Nothing flashy. Just the two of us on a weekend trip in the mountains, fog curling through the trees, and me kneeling in damp grass with a ring that had taken months to pick out. She said yes, through tears and laughter and a kiss that tasted like hot chocolate and cold air. We've been married for 10 years now. No kids, something we talked through a lot and ultimately decided wasn't in the cards for us. It wasn't a sad decision, just honest. Instead, we built a life centered around each other. We got a dog, Jasper, some kind of husky shepherd mix who thinks he's a lapdog. We bought a 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood with creaky floors and ivy creeping up the porch railings. Caroline turned the spare room into a mini library/office, and I finally got the workshop in the garage I'd always wanted. Our daily rhythm feels familiar and comforting. We cook together most nights. She's the experimental one. I'm the one who sticks to the recipe. Saturday mornings are reserved for pancakes and sleeping in. Evenings are for books, old sitcoms, and her cup of chamomile that she always forgets on the coffee table. We host dinner for her sister Emily at least once a month, and she's basically part of the furniture by now. My brother Nate swings by occasionally too, more spontaneous than scheduled, always bringing wine he never pays for. It's the kind of life that looks simple on paper but feels rich when you're in it. Shared routines, inside jokes, familiar touches. We're not flashy or social media perfect, but it's real. At least, that's what I thought. Caroline and I are, or were, a solid team. We don't really fight. I mean, yeah, we have disagreements about the usual stuff. What to watch, who left the dishes in the sink, her leaving the car on empty, but nothing serious. She's the type who laughs when she's mad, which makes it hard to argue with her without feeling like an idiot. I usually end up apologizing before I even realize what I'm sorry for. She works in marketing at a mid-sized agency. She's sharp with words and naturally social, one of those people who knows how to charm a room without trying too hard. It's one of the things I've always admired about her. I run a tech consulting business, which sounds more interesting than it is, but it pays well and gives me flexibility. Some days I'm working with corporate clients, other days I'm troubleshooting someone's bad server setup while drinking stale office coffee. Weekdays are pretty predictable. I work from home most of the time while she heads into the city. She leaves behind this trail of perfume and half-sipped coffee mugs, always in a rush but somehow never late. Jasper, our dog, waits by the window until he hears her car pull back into the driveway. When she walks in, he loses his mind every time like he hasn't seen her in years. It's sweet. It used to make me feel the same way, grateful. Content. We cook together a lot. Caroline loves to experiment. Thai one week, Moroccan the next, even tried Korean barbecue from scratch once. We'll never speak of that disaster again. I'm the designated cleaner-upper, and I don't mind. There's something grounding about rinsing dishes while she leans against the counter rambling about her coworkers or some podcast episode she got sucked into. She always tries to hand me little bites while she's cooking, usually too hot, always too soon. Our weekends are slower. We sleep in, go for long walks with Jasper, maybe grab brunch at the little cafe down the road. Her sister Emily sometimes joins us. She's a couple years younger, single, and always full of stories about bad dates and bizarre clients. She and Caroline are close, always have been. There's an ease between them I've never wanted to interrupt. Then there's my brother, Nate. He's a few years older than me, lives about 30 minutes away, and works in finance, whatever that means. He's a talker. Big personality, always the one to crack jokes and make the room spin a little faster. We've been close since we were kids, and even though we took very different paths, he's always been in my corner. He comes by maybe once a month for dinner or to watch the game, and Caroline gets along with him like they've been friends forever. They poke fun at me constantly, nothing mean, just the usual sibling banter that makes me feel a little outnumbered. All in all, things felt good, solid, stable. We had plans, more traveling, possibly buying a cabin up north, maybe taking a sabbatical year to live abroad if our careers allowed it. Those weren't just pipe dreams. We talked about them seriously, looked at pictures, made spreadsheets. It felt like a life worth looking forward to. There was comfort in the routine, in the familiarity. The house always smelled like her shampoo or whatever she was baking that week. She kept our space beautiful in a way that felt lived in, not curated. Books on every surface, plants in every room, post-it notes with random thoughts stuck to the fridge. She always left music playing softly, even when no one was home. That's just the kind of person she is, or was. Caroline always had a way of making our home feel like something out of a memory. Not the kind that's idealized or photoshopped into perfection, but the kind you feel in your chest when you think about comfort. I'd come home from a long day, and there'd be jazz or folk music playing low in the background, maybe a candle burning on the kitchen counter, the dog curled up in his usual spot. Her coat would be slung over the back of a chair, her bag always just barely zipped. It was like our space held her presence, even when she wasn't there. We didn't live extravagantly, but we had what we needed, and more importantly, we liked the life we built. Our evenings were often quiet. Sometimes we'd cook and talk for hours. Other times we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch, both reading or on our laptops, occasionally pausing to share something funny or random. That silence never felt empty. It felt lived in, like breathing together without having to fill the space with noise. We had routines, but they weren't rigid. Sunday mornings were no-plan mornings. She'd stay in bed reading while I made coffee, and we'd sit together on the porch if the weather allowed, me with my coffee, her with tea, Jasper weaving between us trying to gild his way into a second breakfast. She loved mornings more than I did. Always said the day felt full of possibilities before noon. I was more of a slow burn. Give me time to wake up, and I'll meet you halfway. When we traveled, she planned everything down to the hour, and I pretended to be annoyed by it. Truthfully, I admired how much she cared about getting it right. There was this trip to Montreal a few years back. She had us hopping through markets, galleries, and coffee shops like a local. She was in her element. I remember watching her talk with a vendor in broken French, smiling wide, gesturing with her hands. She looked happy, radiant, even. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is what it means to be in the right place with the right person. We had our people, too. Her sister, Emily, was like a permanent fixture in our lives. I teased her for drinking all our wine and leaving her hair ties on every bathroom counter. But she brought a kind of energy that kept things light. She and Caroline would get lost in conversations about childhood memories, inside jokes I couldn't follow. It never bothered me. It was nice, actually, seeing that side of her. Softer, unfiltered. Nate, my brother, was a different story. He was bold, the kind of guy who enters a room like it's already his. Caroline loved that about him. She used to say he had unfair charisma, and she wasn't wrong. He could talk his way into or out of just about anything. He'd pop in with takeout and stories from his latest client disaster, then disappear for weeks. Caroline always lit up a bit when he came around, partly because he brought life into any space, and partly, I think, because he made her laugh in a way I couldn't always manage. I never felt threatened by that, not then. We were family. That was the rhythm of our life, people weaving in and out, routines grounding us, love flowing beneath the surface of every shared look and small gesture. If you asked me then what I thought the future looked like, I would have told you I was exactly where I wanted to be. I wasn't naive. I knew marriage took work, compromise, attention, but I truly believed we were putting in that work. I thought we were aligned, not just in the big, life plan kind of way, but in the quiet, ordinary, I choose you today kind of way. Looking back, I can still see all of it so clearly. The version of us that lived in those days, it was real. Whatever came after, whatever I know now, that part was real. And that's what makes everything that followed so hard to reconcile. The shift wasn't sudden. That's what messes with me the most. There wasn't a fight, no dramatic moment, no warning. It was gradual. So gradual that I didn't even register the feeling until it had already started to weigh on me. Like something behind the curtain of our daily life had shifted, and I couldn't quite name it yet. I think the first time I noticed it was a Tuesday night. Nothing unusual. Caroline was late coming home from work, which wasn't rare. She texted me. Meeting ran over. Grabbing dinner with the team. Love you. I was halfway through reheating leftovers when I caught myself staring at the message longer than I needed to. Not because of what it said, but because it sounded like her, but didn't feel like her. It felt composed. Like someone trying to write something they've already rewritten in their head a dozen times. She got home around 9:30, smelled like wine and perfume, not her usual kind. She was still laughing from something on her phone, tossed her heels by the door, kissed my cheek like nothing was off. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was just tired. But something about the way she said, "Long day. I'm wiped," didn't sit right with me. I started noticing other things after that. Subtle things. Her phone, which used to live on the kitchen counter or buried in the cushions, suddenly started traveling with her everywhere. Even to the bathroom. She started putting it face down, too. I'd never had a reason to pay attention to that before, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Her work schedule started changing more often. Last-minute client meeting. Late pitch session. Quick stop by Emily's to help with a thing. Each excuse made sense on its own. Caroline was a busy woman. She had a career, a social life. But when you start stacking those excuses side by side, they stop looking like coincidence and start looking like cover. I didn't say anything at first. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I'd read too many stories online or watched too many shows where the guy gets blindsided. But something about Caroline had changed, and not just her schedule. She was distracted. Her laugh didn't land the same way. Her kisses felt lighter, quicker. Her eyes didn't rest on me the way they used to. They moved past me, like I was furniture. Familiar, but no longer interesting. I tried to write it off as stress. We'd both been busy. Maybe we were just in a rut. I took her out to dinner, tried to reconnect, even suggested a weekend getaway. She said it sounded nice, but work was insane right now. She smiled while she said it, but it didn't touch her eyes. Then came the night I called her from the car, just to say hi. She didn't pick up. Nothing unusual, people miss calls. But what stuck with me was when she texted back 10 minutes later, in the middle of something. Talk soon. No, hey babe, no emoji, no warmth. Just cold and vague. That wasn't her. Maybe I wouldn't have thought more of it, except when I came home that night, I caught a whiff of cologne in the hallway. Not mine. Not anything I'd smelled on her before. It was faint, like whoever it belonged to had already been gone for a while. I told myself it could have been anything. A coworker hugged her goodbye. Someone at work sprayed too much cologne. Maybe it was nothing. But that night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, and something inside me started to quiet down. That anxious voice that had been whispering doubts? It stopped whispering. It started asking questions. And that's when I realized I didn't trust her anymore. Not fully. Not blindly. And I hated that. Because for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I wasn't in it with her. I was circling her, trying to read the truth in the spaces she left behind. It's a strange thing, suspicion. It doesn't land like a revelation. It creeps. It curls around ordinary moments and starts to distort them. A familiar laugh sounds hollow. A warm hug feels distracted. And you can't point at any one thing that proves it's real. You just know. You know something's off. I started watching Caroline more closely, not out of jealousy, but out of confusion. I couldn't square the woman I married with the version standing in front of me lately. She was still beautiful, still magnetic in that effortless way, but she had become slippery. Harder to reach. Harder to read. Her patterns kept changing. She started working out more, early mornings, late evenings. Sometimes both. I thought it was great at first, something new to bond over. I offered to go with her. She smiled and said, "You'd hate the class, babe. It's high-intensity stuff. Mostly women." I let it go. Maybe I was overstepping. But then I noticed she never came back sweaty. Never carried a gym bag. No water bottle in sight. One night, I offered to drop her off. She hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it. That subtle flicker. Then she said no. She was meeting Emily first, and they'd ride together. It made sense. Everything she said always made sense. That's what made it harder. Her phone usage became more private. I wasn't trying to snoop, but it's hard not to notice when your wife starts typing with her screen tilted away from you, or when she suddenly starts locking her phone between texts. She'd never done that before. We used to share playlists, show each other memes, trade screenshots of random stuff. Now, she barely laughed when I showed her something funny. Just a forced chuckle, followed by, "That's cute," as her eyes drifted right back to her screen. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and noticed the glow of her phone from under the blanket. She didn't hear me stir. I kept my eyes closed. Her fingers were flying, texting someone. Then I heard the lock click and the phone drop onto the nightstand. She adjusted the blanket, curled away from me, and in the silence that followed, I could feel something between us thickening, like air that had gone stale in a room with no windows. Even Jasper seemed off around her. Our dog, the one who used to sleep pressed against her legs, had started curling up near my side instead. Small thing, but I noticed. He lingered at the bedroom door sometimes, like he was waiting for someone else to arrive. I started keeping mental notes. Not obsessively, at least not at first, but I found myself watching the clock when she said she'd be home at 6:30, and then it turned to 7:10. I'd ask, casually, busy night? And she'd shrug, say something vague. Yeah, things are crazy at work. Then she'd head straight for the shower, even if she didn't look particularly tired or stressed. It built slowly. Each little moment added another drop to the glass, and it was starting to overflow. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. I'd been reading into things too much. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole when you're looking for something that might not even be there. Maybe we were just drifting. Couples do that, right? Life gets busy. Maybe we just needed a vacation. A reset. So I tried again. I suggested a weekend away. Somewhere quiet. A cabin. No phones. Just us. She blinked, hesitated, and said, "That sounds amazing. But can we wait until next month? Things are hectic right now. Always right now. Never when." I said sure. I kissed her shoulder. She smiled and kissed me back. But it felt rehearsed. Like muscle memory. That night, as she drifted to sleep, I stared at the ceiling again. I realized I wasn't asking if something was going on anymore. I was trying to figure out what. I started waking up before my alarm. Every day, like clockwork, somewhere around 5:20 a.m. I'd just lie there in the dark, listening to the faint sounds of the house, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the baseboards, her breath beside me. It should have been comforting. It used to be. But now, everything sounded like static. Caroline was always up before me now. She'd sneak out of bed and into the bathroom with her phone. Not just on the counter, with her. She used to blast music while getting ready, leave the door half open while chatting with me through toothpaste foam. Now she closed it completely. No music. Just water running, longer than usual, and sometimes silence. The kind that hangs. We'd always had this quiet trust, this unspoken freedom in our relationship. We never really checked on each other, because we never needed to. But lately, that freedom had started to feel like a blindfold. And I hated what that was turning me into. I didn't want to be that guy, the guy who starts checking phone logs, who overanalyzes text tones, who glances out the window every time a car pulls up. But then again, I wasn't sure who I was anymore in this marriage. The worst part was that she was still kind, still affectionate in all the expected ways. A kiss on the cheek when she left. A casual love you before bed. But there was a detachment to it, like she was playing the role of a wife instead of actually being mine. And then came Nate. I'd invited him over one Friday night. I didn't say why. I just told him I had steaks, good whiskey, and nothing else planned. I needed something normal, something grounding. When he showed up, he brought a bottle of scotch and a stupid grin. Same old Nate. Caroline was already home. The second she saw him, her whole face lit up. That part wasn't new. She'd always gotten along with Nate. But this time, it felt exaggerated. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear. The way she brushed his arm when she laughed. The way she leaned in just a little too close when he was talking. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was just raw, paranoid. That I was dragging my brother into my spiral. But the thing is, I saw something in Nate too. A look. A moment. When he thought I wasn't paying attention, his eyes lingered on her just a second too long. Not admiration. Not brother-in-law affection. It was familiarity. Later, after dinner, I caught Caroline in the kitchen alone. She was loading the dishwasher, humming to herself. I came up behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist. She flinched. Not dramatically. Not enough that most people would notice. But I did. She covered it fast, smiled, leaned back into me, kissed my cheek. But I felt it. That hesitation. That fraction of a second where her body recoiled before her mind caught up. It sent a chill through me. That night, Nate left a little earlier than usual. Said he had an early morning. Caroline waved at him through the window as he pulled out of the driveway. Then she went upstairs and showered. Again, the scent of her new body wash, something floral I didn't recognize, hung in the hallway. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening to the water run, and for the first time since this feeling started, I said the words out loud. Something's going on. Just a whisper. Just for me. But once I said it, It wouldn't leave me alone. It echoed inside me like a dare. And that night, I decided I needed to know the truth. No more guessing. No more gut feelings. Because I couldn't keep living in this halfway world, not trusting her, not confronting her, just silently watching our life rot from the inside out. I wish I could say I thought it through, that I sat down, weighed the pros and cons, asked myself what kind of man I wanted to be. But the truth is, I didn't think. I reacted. After that night with Nate, after seeing that flicker of something between them, I couldn't keep lying to myself. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a place I was being lied to inside of. Like every room had secrets hidden under the wallpaper. So I bought the cameras. 2 of them. Small, discreet, motion-activated. They looked like ordinary USB chargers, the kind you'd leave plugged in without a second glance. I ordered them on a Wednesday morning while sitting in my office, pretending to work. My fingers trembled over the keyboard when I checked out. There was no turning back after that. Once you cross that line, once you start recording someone without their knowledge, you're not just suspicious. You're changed. They arrived 2 days later. Caroline was working late, or at least that's what she said. I waited until the house was quiet, Jasper asleep in the hallway, the street outside blanketed in stillness. I stood in our bedroom for a long time, just staring at the place where we used to fall asleep in each other's arms. The same room where she used to pull me close in the dark and whisper that she couldn't imagine her life without me. I installed the first camera in a plug across from the bed, a wide enough angle to catch everything. The second one went in the hallway just outside, facing the door. It felt wrong, invasive, but the weight in my chest told me it was necessary, that it was the only way I'd stop feeling like I was losing my mind. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the spare room, staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps that never came. When I heard Caroline finally slip into bed around midnight, I stayed still, barely breathing, my mind already spiraling with possibilities. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal. I went to work. I made dinner. I even laughed when she showed me a dumb TikTok video like everything was fine. But beneath all of it, I was watching her differently. Not with love, not with trust, but with a kind of forensic detachment. Like I was documenting a stranger. She didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. The cameras started capturing the usual things at first. Her brushing her hair, making the bed, talking on the phone with someone, always vague, short conversations. No names, no real details. But I kept checking the footage obsessively, hoping I was wrong. Hoping I'd wasted my time and money and that there was no evidence to find. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it grew louder. Then one night she told me she was heading to her sister's place to help with some emergency decor thing, some vague story about painting samples and lighting. I nodded, smiled, kissed her cheek. Then I left too, about 20 minutes later, but didn't go far. I parked 2 blocks down, just out of sight. I sat there in my car for hours, watching the house, watching the front door, waiting for something I hoped I wouldn't see. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know who I was waiting for. But deep down, I had a terrible feeling I already knew. And I also knew this. The next time I reviewed that camera footage, everything might change. For better or worse, the truth was coming. And I wasn't sure if I was ready. But I was done being in the dark. I watched it in the quiet of my office, blinds drawn, door locked, my hands clenched tighter than I realized until they started to ache. I'd been avoiding it all day. The footage had uploaded automatically the night before, triggered around 7:42 p.m., right after Caroline left for Emily's. The timestamp burned into my mind. I told myself maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was just her returning for something she forgot. Maybe it was nothing. But I knew better. I felt it. The clip started with the bedroom door opening. Caroline wasn't in the frame. Not yet. Just footsteps, the rustling of clothes. Then I saw him. My brother. Nate. He walked in like he belonged there. Confident. Comfortable. He glanced around once, casually, and then she followed. Caroline. My wife. Laughing. Laughing in a way I hadn't heard from her in months. Light, breathy, flirtatious. They kissed. Right there. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not a peck, not a mistake, but something practiced. Familiar. Her hands moved to his chest. His gripped her waist. She pushed him onto the bed, straddling him like she'd done to me 100 times before. Maybe more. I couldn't move. I don't even remember breathing. My body was locked, tight, cold, humming with something between nausea and fury. It didn't last long. 15 minutes, maybe 20. I didn't fast forward. I made myself watch every second, even when I wanted to throw up. Even when I had to pause and cover my face, just to collect myself. I needed to see it. I needed to burn it into memory. Afterwards, they lay in bed together, her head on his chest. They whispered. I couldn't hear most of it, but I caught fragments. She said, he's so clueless. He laughed. You sure he doesn't suspect anything? And then she said something that still makes my skin crawl. Not a chance. He trusts me too much. They laughed again. A private joke. About me. I stared at the screen, numb. My heartbeat wasn't even fast. It was slow, dull, like my body had shut down to keep me from feeling all of it at once. I backed away from the desk, pushing the chair with my knees. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there on the edge of the bed in the spare room, the one I'd been sleeping in for weeks, and listened to the ticking of the wall clock. For the first time in my life, I felt completely unmade. Like my past, my marriage, my trust, it had all been rewritten in real time by people I thought I knew. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. Eventually, I closed the laptop. I didn't delete the footage. I didn't save it somewhere special either. It existed now. Like a scar. They didn't know yet that I'd seen them. But that was going to change. Soon. Because everything inside me had shifted. And something in me had snapped. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, eyes wide open, every part of my body stiff with a strange, electric calm. I wasn't crying. I wasn't pacing or punching walls. I wasn't screaming into the dark. I was still. And I was planning. There's a certain clarity that comes with devastation, a sort of cold, focused silence where you realize just how much you're capable of doing when nothing is left to protect. The man I was 2 days ago would have been heartbroken. The man I was now? He was calculating. The next morning, I sent a single text to Emily, Caroline's sister. I needed to see her. Alone. No context, just a time and a place. She showed up, no questions asked. She always liked me, maybe more than she ever admitted. We met at a little cafe just outside the city, the kind of place where no one looks too long at anyone. When she walked in, she gave me a tight hug and asked what was going on. I didn't say a word. I handed her my phone, already queued up with the footage from the night before. She watched in silence, her mouth set in a hard line. When it ended, she didn't look at me right away. She just pushed the phone back across the table and said, quietly, I'm so sorry. I told her I didn't want her pity, I wanted her help. And without even asking what I meant, she nodded. That was all I needed. I won't lie and say it wasn't about revenge. It was. But it was more than that. It was about taking something back. Dignity, control, something I couldn't name but felt hollowed out of me the moment I saw my brother in my bed with my wife. I needed to stain their perfect little secret with something they couldn't ignore, couldn't unsee. And I knew exactly how. Emily and I met again later that night. She came to the house, under the guise of checking in on Caroline, who wasn't home, of course. It wasn't some wild, passionate act. There were no candles, no heat. It was quiet. Strange. Mechanical, even. But it happened. And it was filmed. Not to be proud of. Not to frame or brag about. But to prove something. To myself. To them. To the universe. The next day, I sent the clip to Caroline. No message. No context. Just the file. She didn't respond right away. But I knew she saw it, read receipt on, just like always. The silence from her end was louder than any scream. That evening, I went home early. She was already there, sitting at the kitchen table, pale and trembling, her phone in front of her like it was going to explode. She looked up at me with wide eyes and tried to speak, but I held up a hand. I wasn't interested in her excuses, her tears, her carefully rehearsed. It didn't mean anything routine. I'd already heard enough lies for a lifetime. I know everything, I said. I saw it. All of it. You and Nate. In our bed. Laughing about how clueless I am. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just a sound, small, pathetic. I gave you every chance, I continued. And you took advantage of every single one. You thought I'd never find out. You counted on my trust. And now, it's gone. Just like you're about to be. She started crying, stammering something about how she made a mistake, how she was confused, how it just happened and she didn't mean to hurt me. I laughed. I actually laughed. You chose it. You chose him. Over and over again. And now I'm choosing me. I walked to the door, held it open. Get out. She didn't move at first. Just sat there sobbing, her hands shaking. So I repeated it, louder. Get out. Eventually, she stood, collected her things, and walked past me without another word. I didn't follow her. I didn't look back. I just closed the door and locked it behind her. But I wasn't finished. Nate's company, the one he inherited from our uncle and used to brag about during every family dinner, had a long, ugly history of cutting corners. I knew that. I'd helped him with some back-end systems years ago, and I remembered seeing things that didn't quite line up. So I made a call. Quietly. Anonymously. Sent some old files to the right people. And within a week, his office was crawling with auditors. By the end of the month, his company was shut down for multiple tax violations. Fines, investigations, headlines. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was poetic. They thought they'd get away with it. They thought I'd lie down and take it. But I didn't. I stood up. And I made damn sure they'd never forget who they betrayed. The house was quiet for the first time in weeks. No arguing, no pretending, no waiting for footsteps that meant betrayal. Just stillness. I sat in the living room one morning, coffee in hand, the kind of bitter brew I used to complain about when Caroline made it, and realized I'd stopped flinching at silence. I welcomed it now. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own breathing, that lets you start over. I sold the bed the next day. I couldn't stand to look at it. Even stripped bare, the frame held memories I didn't want, ghosts of moments I couldn't unsee. I replaced it with something new, something plain and solid, like I needed everything to be for a while. I slept better that night than I had in months. Caroline tried reaching out a few times, but I never responded. Her messages swung from pleading to angry to apologetic and back again. I didn't block her. I wanted her to sit in it, to see her words go unread. She was no longer part of my story. She was the ending to a chapter I'd finally closed. Nate disappeared, not just from my life, but from our family. I didn't speak to him, didn't hear from him. From what I've gathered, most of the family sided with me. My parents were furious. My cousins cut him off completely. I don't know where he is now. I don't care. Whatever self-destruction he walks into next, he'll do it without me watching. I moved out of the house 2 weeks later. I didn't want to live in something that had rotted from the inside out. I found a place on the edge of town, a small house with creaky floors and a porch that looks out at a stretch of woods. It's not much, but it feels untouched. Honest. A clean page. Jasper came with me, of course. He's been quiet lately, too, like he's recovering from something he didn't understand. But he follows me from room to room, rests his head on my lap at night, and sometimes licks my hand like he knows I need it more than I'll admit. Dogs always know. The first time I really laughed again was in a bookstore. I was just browsing, not looking for anything, and I dropped a stack of novels by accident. A woman nearby looked over and said, "Well, that's one way to make a scene." Her smile was easy, not flirtatious, just kind. I laughed. A real one. Not forced. Not polite. It felt strange in my throat at first, but once it was out, I didn't want it to stop. We talked. Nothing serious. Just books, coffee, quiet places. Her name's Lily. She teaches literature at a local college. We've met up a few times since then. Walks with Jasper, coffee in hand, stories shared in low voices. She knows I'm not ready for anything big. I told her I'm still grieving the life I thought I had. She didn't flinch. Just said, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." That's the thing, isn't it? Life doesn't give you a map when it falls apart. It doesn't say, "Turn left here. You'll feel whole again by Thursday." It just hands you pieces. And if you're lucky, or stubborn, you start to build something new. I'm not who I was before. I never will be. But I'm not the man I was during those nights filled with doubt and rage, either. I'm somewhere in between. And that's okay. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm just living. And that's enough. It's been almost 6 months now since that night I watched the footage. 6 months since the world I thought I knew cracked wide open. And somehow, I'm still standing. I look back sometimes, not because I miss her, or him, or anything about what we had, but because it reminds me just how far I've come. There was a version of me that would have given anything to go back to the way things were. Who would have swallowed the doubt, made excuses, tried to fix something that wasn't just broken, it was hollow. That man is gone. And I'm not mourning him anymore. Caroline signed the divorce papers without a fight. I didn't even have to see her. Our lawyers handled everything. She didn't ask for anything. No alimony, no property, nothing. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of shame. Maybe because she knew anything she took would carry the weight of what she'd done. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that I'm free. I've settled into my new house. It's smaller, quieter, and mine in a way the old one never truly was. I've started picking up new hobbies, woodworking, trail photography, things I never had time for when my life revolved around maintaining a lie. There's a calm in the routine now, in the stillness. I've come to love mornings again, not because I'm waiting for anything, but because they're mine. Lily and I still talk. She's become a friend, a gentle presence in a season of rebuilding. There's no rush, no pressure, just kindness. And that's more than enough for now. I think when you've been gutted by someone you loved, what you crave most isn't passion or excitement. It's sincerity. And she has that in spades. I still carry the scar. I won't pretend I don't. There are nights when I wake up and reach for something that isn't there. When I hear a certain laugh or see a couple holding hands, and for a split second, I feel the sting. But it fades quicker now. It doesn't linger like it used to. Because I know the truth. What happened to me wasn't a reflection of who I am. It was a reflection of who they chose to be. I don't believe in karma in some cosmic, poetic justice kind of way. But I do believe people eventually meet the consequences of the lives they build. Caroline and Nate will have to sit with what they did for the rest of their lives. And me? I'm moving forward. If you're reading this because you've been where I've been, if you're still in the thick of it, still staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering how the hell everything fell apart, I want to tell you this. You will get through it. You will not be the same. But that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes, the fire doesn't just burn you. Sometimes, it forges something stronger in its place. And that's where I'm standing now, not in the ashes of what was, but in the beginning of what's next. Thanks for walking this journey with me. It's strange how a bunch of strangers on the internet can feel like a lifeline. But you were, and I'll never forget that. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. Start again.